Setúbal, a world in itself. Between the hills and the river, this is a council of diverse flavours, history, unique landscapes and welcoming peoples with smiles and open arms. This is the arrival point for a land packed with chromatic contrasts. Running across blues, greens and the whites of homes, Setúbal offers up an unprecedented conjugation that few other Portuguese cities may claim to enjoy. The city is the focal point of a hinterland like few others, replete with contrasts and laid out for your discovery. With the hills of Arrábida to the west, the nature reserve of the Sado estuary to the east, and a bay that is considered one of the finest in the world lapping at its southwards frontage, Setúbal is able to provide both the energy typical of an urban pole and the peace of nature. Its renowned grilled fish specialities, monuments such as the Convent of Jesus Gardens and the bustle of the downtown retail trade against the riverside ambience turn this city into a tourist landmark. Adding to this, the Arrábida Hills and the Sado River provide an escape from city life, whether heading out along pathways, observing the estuary's dolphin community, engaging in open-air sports or relaxing on one of the beaches. The approximate 170 square kilometres of the council, divided up into 8 parishes, contain remnants of human settlements dating back to the Neolithic period. Although the Phoenicians first peopled the region, it was with the Roman city of Setúbal between the 1st and 4th centuries that Setúbal first emerged as an important urban and industrial centre, primarily due to the fish salting industry. The next major steps came later in 1249 with the declaration of the city's first charter and the construction begun in 1343 of the city's first walls. The era of the discoveries brought major development to Setúbal, the city that grew rich in this period out of trade and other port activities. King João III granted the title Notable Town in 1525 after his predecessor Manuel reformulated its charter in 1514. During rule by Castile 1580 to 1640, King Philippe II ordered the beginning of construction of the São Felipe Fortress, today a vantage point for stunning views out over the river and the city. Saint Francis Xavier, who is believed to have passed through the region en route to the Orient, was named the city's patron saint by popular acclaim in the 18th century. In accordance with its economic and social development, with a flourishing canning industry contributing, Setúbal became a city in 1860 with a royal charter handed down by King Pedro V. In 1926, the city became district capital and granted diocese status in 1975. The poet Bocage and the opera singer Luísa Todi are key figures in the cultural history of Setúbal, the birthplace of many leading Portuguese artists such as the painter Lima de Freitas and the poet Sebastião da Gama, among other renowned figures of Portuguese society. Aise Town is the name given to a series of settlements that culminate from a visitor's perspective in the towns of Nogueira and Fresca. Overshadowed by the Serra de Arrábida stamping its presence on the coastal approach, this region has been inhabited for millennia, although it was particularly after the 15th century that Aise Town gained in prestige with the arrival of noble households. The estate, palaces and fountains to be found across this area bear due witness to these periods. Today, Aise Town stands out for its bucolic peace, the weight of history resting on each building, the charm of its inhabitants and in particular, the range of gastronomic experiences on offer. Visits should certainly be on foot. Any other means of getting about seems totally out of context, as these towns call for wandering and drawing in the calm pace of the countryside. The Serra de Arrábida is a tall hill range running across 35 kilometres with the highest point reaching about 500 metres above sea level. A visit to Arrábida, classified as a nature park, provides a mixture of nature and bathing off one of the many beaches stretched out below the Atlantic-facing slopes. walk through Arabida might begin at the bottom on the beaches. Along this coast there are various alternatives with fine sands, warm to the touch and refreshed by the ocean beyond. Figueirinha Beach is one of the biggest and best known, with a car park facilitating access. However, there are many small hideouts, genuine coves, hidden among the silhouettes of hills such as Galapush and Galapinhos, ideal for those seeking out the quiet of more isolated places. The lack of car parking or somewhat more challenging foot access is of little consequence to those seeking out the peace and tranquility that any of these beaches provide. For your next visit, the best option is to view from afar what has been experienced so close up. Heading up into the hills along the panoramic road, there are a succession of stunning views. There are natural viewpoints dotted along the way, opening out onto the rolling curves of Arabida, and all inviting you to pull over to take a look every few minutes. Among the green vegetation of the nature park, there are clearings revealing wonderful views of the beaches and sea below, and in a single instance, nature enforces upon us just how many different forms beauty can take. The downtown, or Baixa, is the historical centre of Setúbal. Each road, building, facade, cobblestone is a piece of the city's memory. Here, the past stretches back as far as the Phoenicians and Romans, but a tour of downtown Setúbal is more than just some history lesson. You're also making your way through an open-air shopping mall. 5 minutes from Bocage Square, the centre of the historical district, there is the Convent of Jesus, a 16th century monument whose facade was recently fully restored. Inside is the Museum of Setúbal, gallery of 16th century painting. But another point of interest is the Church of Jesus, considered the first attempt at a hall church in Portugal. Twisting columns in the locally sourced Brecha de Arabida rock combine to create a greater sense of height, with a similar effect over the altar, which, seen up close, only gains in monumental perspective. This convent was the site on which Portugal ratified its division of the planet with the Kingdom of Castile on signing the Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494. From the convent, it's onwards to Bocage Square, the ideal point of departure for discovering the downtown Baixa. Here, the 21st century intimately rubs shoulders with Roman and medieval legacies. Flanked by esplanades, the Church of São Julião displays a fine Manueline gateway in which figures carved in stone 500 years ago look down upon the artisans selling their wares today. Avenida Luísa Todi has recently been given a makeover and equipped with spaces for socialization. A good point of departure for exploring the Sado Estuary Nature Reserve is the Marisca Tide Mill near Faralhão. This is an area of marshes and saltworks where nature very much stamps its mark on the landscape, with the mill representing the centuries in which man bent its powers to his or her own gain. The observation of the fauna and flora is in itself one of the major points of interest, with the opportunity to spot, depending on the season, wading birds, flamingos, birds of prey or white storks. The Sado Estuary Nature Reserve, where the saltworks bear due testimony to the regional importance that this industry had in times gone by, is rich in ecological variety and hence well worth the adventuring along the paths and tracks that crisscross its extent. The intimacy of Setúbal's relationship with the sea over centuries is directly reflected in the local culture. The neighbourhoods of Troinu and Fontainhas stand out given the routes set down by fishing communities, although there are other parts of the city and council with similar characteristics. In both of these neighbourhoods there is that particular characteristic of urban regions in which the neighbourly spirit still prevails, where, on turning the corner of any street, will mean an encounter with residents in lively conversation at windows and doorways. Given this council hosts a significant multicultural presence in its population, it is also true that the inhabitants of Fontainhas and Troinu are among the most genuine of the Setúbalenses. Across the council there are museums that research and display the many different facets to the Setúbal identity. Labour, ethnographic culture, the 16th and 19th century golden periods, the poetry and the sea are the main themes. Each gets its own permanent exhibition that, joined up as pieces in a puzzle, together represent a cross-section through Setúbal. The different gardens provide wonderful opportunities to relax and contemplate the rich and varied urban flora and create your own special bond with the surroundings. There are many green zones, areas for leisure and relaxation. Indeed, one of the best ways to discover Setúbal is walking its streets. Whether fish, meat, snacks or pasta, the list of restaurants is extensive and ensures dining out is one of the strong points to Setúbal. While varieties are constant along the different streets of the city, there are areas with a greater concentration of restaurants with different styles and emphases, offering visitors a wide choice whether lunching or dining. The lower side of Avenida Luisa Torre is the centre of the city's nightlife. In this large area, noticeably bordered by the Marquês de Pombal Square and the beginning of the road down to the beaches, there are bars and discos behind pretty much every entrance. It is common, particularly in the warmth of summer nights, for people to gather outside bar doorways. Right at the end of the avenue, those streets as far as Doca dos Pescadores contain a range of alternatives, and there are still more places on Avenida 5 de Outubro and the Engenheiro Luís da Fonseca Garden, better known as Beira-Mar Garden. Styles, ambiences and music for all tastes. The best option is to set off and explore for yourself.